when you look at the events of recent history affecting Tottenham, have Tottenham really learned any lessons from 2021? It would appear history is repeating itself, is it not? We remember back in 2021, and Simon, you and I were on in the morning when Daniel Levy and Tottenham announced the sacking of José Mourinho. Of course, Mourinho, it was leading up to Tottenham being in a League Cup final. It took them 71 days to appoint a permanent successor to José Mourinho, and they landed at Nuno Espírito Santo. Now, when you fast forward and you look at what's been going on, Pochettino, Fonseca, Gattuso, Conte in 2021 were passed by before they landed at the feet of Nuno Espírito Santo, who lasted 3 months. Here we are. In 2023, Pochettino, Vincent Kompany's name was mentioned. Nagelsmann's been mentioned. Xabi Alonso was in there. And Arne Slot only yesterday said, "Hi, everybody, but count me out. I won't be coming." It would seem history's repeating itself, Stuart, at Tottenham. Why is that?
Well, why? I don't know. The one thing I would say is I think there's a lot of work to do for a manager coming into Tottenham. The expectation will be reasonably high. It always is. It's Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. You've got the Harry Kane situation to resolve one way or the other. If he wants to leave the club or whether he doesn't want to leave the club, who knows? And I think they need to probably refreshen the squad quite drastically to compete at the top end of the division. The fans will expect at least Champions League football. They always do.
Yeah.
And they're craving silverware of some description.
I mean, it is incredible, Simon, the similarities, as I just spelled out there, because they had it in their hands to make better appointments and didn't. Nuno Espírito Santo didn't last very long and was hardly popular in his time there. In fact, one would argue that he didn't have time to prove himself. And now when you see a short list of, I mentioned there, Pochettino, Kompany, Nagelsmann, Xabi Alonso and Slot, they've all gone. They're no longer in the equation.
No.
And now they're grasping in the dark again. Funnily enough, Mourinho was asked about Tottenham. He's now at Roma and doing well at Roma on the point of another European final. And significantly, he said this.
I hope the Tottenham fans don't get me wrong, but the only club in my career where I don't have still a deep feeling with is Tottenham. Probably because the stadium was empty, COVID time. Probably because Mr. Levy didn't let me win a final and win a trophy. But he's the only one. So after that, Porto, Chelsea, Inter, Real Madrid, Manchester United, all the clubs, I feel connection. Maybe people, you cannot love every club. Yes, I love every club. I love every club because I always felt the other way around. They also love me. So with Roma, one day will be hard. Will be hard. One day will be hard, but we will be connected forever, like I am with all my previous clubs, a part of Mr. Levy club.
So he got it in there at the end as well.
He's a swine, isn't he? I mean, look.
You love him.
I do love him. I do. And I'm one of the people that in the room constantly push back against the notion that he's a busted flush and finished, which is often advanced. I'm not sure he can make some of these claims that he makes about loving at Man United because he was as miserable as sin up there. I mean, everyone was sitting over there so fed up with Mourinho's attitude when he's at Man United. I think he's got selective memory.
Yeah, but the name that keeps on getting mentioned is your chum at Tottenham.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the bottom line is that, you know, Daniel's got to put a manager in place. But every single situation will have a reason. If we're going to put people into positions and ask them why they haven't got jobs, then we've got to look at it through a proper prism. You know, we've discussed the Arne Slot situation. We know that there's a challenge there that we think that actually the manager might have leveraged the opportunity to get himself a better outcome at Feyenoord. We look at Vincent Kompany and we say, well, Vincent Kompany wants to stay at Burnley. You know, you can make the argument, not everyone just runs and jumps at the first opportunity and suggests that actually, I must go there because on paper it looks a bigger deal. Some people will look at it properly and go, actually, I'm going to go into the Premier League with Burnley. I'm very much appreciated here. I can learn my trade in a smaller club with less expectation, and I'll get my opportunity again. So I'm not making defence. Fonseca's done very little. Gattuso went out and managed Valencia. Look at where Valencia are now, getting relegated into the second tier of Spanish football with a 30% win record, and he got sacked.
But you say you're not making a defensive, Daniel. You are making a defensive, Daniel.
I'm just giving balance in the conversation. Because clearly and evidentially, Daniel's decision-making process around managers hasn't worked.
You mentioned Vincent Kompany. Vincent Kompany did commit himself to Burnley and signed a longer deal.
Did indeed.
But could Daniel not have nicked in before that?
Clearly not.
Jim, do you not think that Tottenham, years gone by, is a very attractive prospect? Today, managers are looking at it and thinking, not so sure about this one. Don't want to put my reputation on the line trying to turn Tottenham around. There's too much work to do.
God forbid. God forbid they have to do a bit of work. The decision-making process, you cannot argue that the decision-making process that Daniel's made has been incoherent and not full of sensible, joined-up thinking, because you've got Mourinho.
Why are people saying no to him?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask them. But it depends how the question was asked. We're assuming that these are done deals.
Look at the list.
We are assuming, right, and perhaps there might be an element of assumption on our part. Maybe Tottenham decided they didn't want these people. Maybe it's not just a gimme that we like the narrative. The narrative is Daniel Levy's useless. And he's
no one's saying that. No one's saying that.
So you don't know, and I don't know, because we don't know that Tottenham have decided they don't want these people.
No. Wait a minute. You're the one that always sits in the studio and say football's all about outcomes.
Of course it is.
Outcomes.
Right.
Where's the outcome?
So the outcome will be
before it was Nuno Espirito Santo.
So the outcome.
Goodbye. So where's the outcome this time?
So the outcome will be, Jim, if we're sat here on August the 12th and Tottenham don't have a manager.
Oh, then, that's ridiculous.
Then
of course it will.
Until then, pipe down, because the process involves them selecting a manager at their pace, not your pace, not those Herberts over at Sky, when they decide to do it.
But that's
true. It's right.
Of course, he's not going to be announcing the new manager in August the 12th. He is.
But you're judging.
The place will be in
but
utter turmoil.
it's an easy judgment to make because we don't know. And you might be right, Jim. We might absolutely be right. All these people met Daniel Levy and went, "Ooh, no, thanks very much." Or there's a possibility that Daniel Levy went, "No, thanks very much either." The balance is we link these names. We link them.
With no foundation whatsoever. Of course there's foundation to
there's
it.
always foundation to something, but you don't know the depth and strength of the foundation. We don't know how much the conversation...
Would you have paid Feyenoord the 20 million they wanted for Slot?
If I really wanted them, yeah.
Well, there you go.
And so would Tottenham.
Would Tottenham.
Well, of course they would, because ultimately they're looking at it and suggesting that this is a huge component part of what they're going to achieve. He's going to spend more money in one transfer window on players than he's going to spend on acquiring a manager. If you want that guy and you really believe that he's the answer and the antidote to all your problems, 20 million quid is a fraction of what you're going to spend on players that guy's going to buy. So why wouldn't you? We're going to save a fiver.
I think that's
for.
a question. So why wouldn't you? Because this guy, it's screaming out, Stuart. This guy has turned Feyenoord around. I know we're talking about the Eredivisie, but they play a brand of football that have left the Dutch audience virtually open mouth. They haven't seen anything like this since Cruyff was in the scene.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't get him.
It could be a multitude of reasons behind that. You know, some managers, as Simon alluded to, use it as a levering, as a wedge to get a bigger contract where they are.
Yeah.
So you just don't know that.
I think where you're right, Jim, is if Tottenham index themselves to something and look like they want something, they've got to get it. They've got to close the deal. It's no good.
Yeah.
It's no good saying I was close and we didn't do this, or I really wasn't that interested. If you're going to either come out and correct it and say, hold on a minute here. I know Daniel's in the camp of never complain, never explain, that sort of mentality. But I do think sometimes you put people in their place. Actually, we didn't want him. And these are the reasons why we didn't want him. So buzz off, media.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. That's his choice. I would operate in a different way. But if I was indexed to Slot, I'd get him. I would get him. I would do whatever it took to get him and go, right, up yours now. What are you going to say about that? and you get criticised for that, of course. But
and now, Stuart, all roads, it would seem, are pointing in the direction, and Celtic fans will not like this, of Ange Postecoglou. The problem there is, how do you judge a manager's body of work in a two-club league?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's virtually what Scotland is. Of course it is. They're in a cup final against Inverness Caledonian Thistles, Celtic. Thereafter, might they go for him? Now, Postecoglou, his name has entered the frame. Of that, there is no doubt. There are reports down here that his name is now nearing the top of the list. He's reportedly on a 12-month rolling contract at Celtic. Scott Nunn, Tottenham's new chief football operator, worked at the City Group, who own Yokohama Marinos, where Postecoglou coached before he came to Celtic in 2021. So there are various reasons to point in the direction of Postecoglou. But coming from the Scottish situation and the Scottish scene, where his club Celtic dominated Rangers and came out on top in a two-team race.
Yep.
Do you put all your eggs in that basket?
Well, you do your homework and you hopefully come up with somebody that you think ticks the vast majority of the boxes that you're looking for as a chairman. But I'm not looking at Tottenham and thinking whoever they bring through the door, they're going to win trophies next year or they're going to be in the top four on what I'm seeing at the moment, especially if a fella who scored 28 Premier League goals decides to walk out the door. You're losing 28 goals and 28 points, basically, from your tally. That would put you somewhere near the bottom 5 or 6 in the division. So you've got to replace that if Harry Kane decides to walk out your football club at any given time. And I understand he's contracted, but I think even the Tottenham fans would turn around at this stage and wish Harry well if he did decide to walk, because they're that frustrated themselves.
Yeah, I think the Tottenham fans, Simon, would see him as a priority at this time. Kane extending his deal as opposed to Daniel getting it right with the new manager.
Fans will see whatever Daniel Levy hasn't done as the priority. So if he signs Harry Kane to a 10-year contract next week, they'll be off on him about the manager. And if he gets a manager, they'll be off on him about the sporting director. And if he gets that done, it'll be off on him about the fact that he's got F1 go-karting running around the track during the summer. And they'll be off on him about the Beyonce concert next week. The bottom line is, Daniel has got to get a manager. But you've got to give him a bit of begrudging respect to some extent. You know why? Because he don't care. He sat there going, I'll appoint a manager when I feel like it. Lots of people will buckle under the pressure of the expectation of getting a manager in the door just to placate the fan base. Where he gets it wrong is he deliberates and pontificates in and brings in Nuno Espirito Santo and then gets him out. That doesn't help the cause.
I think the desire is to get it right.
Exactly right. So let's dial it down, wait what he gets in, and then criticise the hell out of him when he got the wrong guy in. But in the meantime, Tottenham are waiting to find the manager that they want. We are micro-analysing it because that's what we do. And assuming there's no rhyme and reason, all these guys are looking at it going, well, don't fancy Daniel Levy, we're not Tottenham, no thanks to the last place we want to go, because of the rantings of Antonio Conte, who doesn't have one shred of integrity about him.
You can't go back. You can't talk about Conte much longer, though, because we've done that today.
I can talk about the integrity of football managers, because if we're going to keep on going at Tottenham, and whichever other football club has a challenge with its manager and the outcomes that they want, there also has to be everyone in the car. I want everybody judged by the fair standards. Get them all in there. Get the players in there, get the manager in there, get the owner in there, and they all get it. Don't just separate one person and go, it's all him. That's what I rail against. That's why people go, oh, you're defending Daniel Levy. No, I'm defending the concept that you lot move the players out and you move the manager out and you go, they're all fine, with Conte disappearing off with his 15 million quid having done bugger all besides create uproar everywhere, and everyone else cops it. And the players aren't, it's not down to them either.
He's threatening to go off on one, Stuart. Finish this for me.
Right. If I, as a manager or as a coach, were going to walk through the door and work for Daniel Levy, I'd be quite happy, personally. I think, I don't know him particularly well or at all. I met him once or twice. He seems someone that, if you ask him a straightforward question in regard to budget, in regard to anything, he'll give you a straightforward answer back. And I think as a manager, that's all you want. Whether you get frustrated that you've not got a war chest that you want, I think going through the door and working with him, and Simon knows him better than I can answer that, I think he'll give you honest answers to your questions.
I promise you this, Jim, and you can take it as you want and believe it if you do or don't want to.
Thanks very much.
90% of the people that bait and switch are the managers, not the owners. Owners do it too. They'll say one thing and do another, but 90% of the time, there's exceptions. Maybe he didn't, Stuart, because he's cut from a different cloth. That's why he stays with Nottingham Forest when they get relegated. And if there were more Stuart Pearces around, it'd be a better world. But 90% of managers bait and switch. They're the ones that change their attitude. They're the ones that change their outlook. They're the ones that say they're going to do one thing and do another. They're the ones that demand you give them this, and when they've got it and they can't make it work, you demand something else. And you've got to sit there going, but I gave you that. That's what you asked for. Why have I got to give you this as well? Oh, because the game's changed. Well, hang on, we agreed something. They're the ones that do it, but they're the ones that get away from it every single time, and it does burn my backside, listening to the drivel that comes out of people's minds, giving those guys passes when they're in it. Everyone should be in it. If everyone's going to get everyone's going to get praise, everyone should get the blame.
Absolutely.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.